Before I start this video, make sure to use my TCG Player affiliate link down below in the description. Also, if you do want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a patron. There are some great benefits including giveaways, early access to videos, and can be featured in gameplay videos in the future. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG, and in this video I wanted to cover a really cool wolf commander that I feel like I could see building myself. I feel like I have a ton of Naya decks with dinosaurs, but honestly I might have to scrap some for this because man, is this powerful, and honestly I like how it works with wolves and elves. So Voja of the Conclave does read for 2 red, green, and a white. It's a legendary creature wolf, does have vigilance, trample, and ward 3, so it does have a way to protect itself with the ward ability, so that by itself alone is really good. Plus it does have vigilance so that it can stay behind and block, and is a 5/5 body, so relatively there's a lot of great stats there, but there's a lot of other things to consider. It does have the other ability, whenever it does attack you put X/1/1 counters on each creature you control, where X is the number of elves you control. You draw a card for each wolf you control. So what I do like about this is the fact that it does lean into 2 different creature strategies with elves or even with wolves. I feel like either way it's going to be a very good deck to build around. Of course itself is a wolf, so no matter what, when you do attack with it you're going to draw a card regardless. So yeah, I'm already loving this commander. I feel like there's a lot of strategies you can build around, whether you want to go focus more on elves or wolves. It's up to you. I feel like a mix is probably the best, so let's dive into it. Alright, so first I do want to talk about wolves because I feel like drawing cards with your commander is really important. So the first card I do want to talk about is Cemetery Prowler. This is absolutely fantastic in the deck. Just a 3 mana 3/4 with vigilance is good by itself. Also, it is graveyard hate whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks. Plus, when you do exile those cards, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card type they share with cards exiled with Cemetery Prowler. So this is graveyard hate, a cost reducer, all on 3 mana. Yeah, I'm sold. Next up, I do want to talk about Nightpack Ambusher, as well as Silver Fur Partisan. I do like these as token generators. Nightpack Ambusher gives a buff to our wolves and werewolves. And if anybody tries to remove our commander or any other wolves on the battlefield, we could put an additional token on the battlefield with Silver Fur Partisan. However, if you really want to amplify the tokens on the battlefield, Hollow Henge Overlord will get the job done for you. I know it's 6 mana, but you can cast it at flash speed, so you can time this just right. And at the beginning of your upkeep, for each creature you control that's a wolf or a werewolf, create a 2/2 green wolf creature token. So you can cast this before your turn on your opponent's end step so that you can have this trigger immediately. If you do have your commander out on the battlefield, you'll immediately make 2 wolves. And what's really nice about this is we just have to have our commander out on the battlefield and swing. We don't have to worry about our other wolves swinging away. We could just draw a card for each wolf we control. Based off of that previous interaction that I mentioned, if we do swing in with our commander, we could just draw 4 cards based off if we do get that trigger with Hollow Henge Overlord. And obviously based off of how much wolves we do have on the battlefield, we can make more wolf tokens, swing in, and draw a lot of cards. I know a lot of people might be turned off on the fact that this is 6 mana, but for flash speed, I feel like this is a perfect fit in the deck. But if your commander's ability of ward wasn't enough, we could give it indestructible with Inara Wolvid Familiar. Simply, as long as it's your turn, commanders you control have indestructible. What more do you want to protect your commander a little further, especially when it goes into combat damage? Somebody might block with it, so of course we will get that trigger of attacking, and on top of that it will be indestructible. The next one is a little bit of an interesting one, but I feel like it could be okay with Tovolar Dire Overlord. I'm kind of debating on taking this out, but I just did want to highlight it because whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Because there is a focus on wolves, we can get a lot of card draw out of Tovolar. Obviously, if you do switch it to the backside, we could get a buff to our commander by giving it +X/+0 and trample. I don't think it's going to be completely needed because I feel like our commander is going to get buffed up a lot depending on how much elves we do put on the battlefield. So this one is debatable. I might think about taking this one out, but I just wanted to give it a quick mention. Speaking of elves, I feel like elves are going to be a better strategy for this deck because they're more abundant in Magic the Gathering compared to wolves. So of course with elves, they're going to do the elf thing of ramping you ahead. For example, like Land of War Elves, Elvish Mystic, and Arbor Elf. These are just no-brainers in the deck. I just wanted to give this a quick mention because they act as a super type, because when you do have more elves on the battlefield, the more you can buff up every creature you have with your commander attacking. I just wanted to quickly highlight these because of course they're auto includes. Another auto include I did want to mention is Marwyn the Nurturer. So the reason why I want to mention this is because we're putting a lot of counters on all our creatures we do control when our commander does attack, depending on how much elves we do have, and we can put more and more counters on Marwyn so that we could tap for more green mana. This is an absolute win regardless if you are playing elves a lot or not. You're just going to be buffing them even further with our commander. Of course, now Voja did get her own commander, but let's go back to where it started with Tolsimir Wolfblood and also Tolsimir Friend to Wolves. I feel like if anything else, these are here more for flavor reasons. I do find Tolsimir Friend to Wolves a little better, even though Tolsimir Wolfblood is an anthem for your creatures. However, the newer updated version of Tolsimir is great because it acts as a removal, also gaining some life. Also, what's very nice about these two is the fact that they do make Voja the Wolf token, whether it's a 2/2 or a 3/3 on the battlefield. Regardless, it's fine because they act as extra card draw with our commander. And both Tolsimir themselves act as elves so that we can buff up all our creatures. So again, they're here for flavor, but can be great utility overall. So up next, I do want to talk about General Marhut, Elfdragon, Grand Warlord Rada, and also Fleetwood Dancer. And the main reason why I did want to point out these compared to a lot of different elves that I could be mentioning is the fact that they're kind of off color for elves. Usually elves are in those Golgari colors or even Simic colors. 2 are in Gruul colors and 1 is in Naya colors. So again, I feel like utilizing these are just great by themselves. I do like Grand Warlord Rada, mainly because if we swing with a lot of creatures, we could get a lot of Gruul hybrid mana colors. Plus, I just like Fleetwood Dancer because it's a trample, lifelink, haster with 4/4 body for 4 mana. What's not to like about it, especially if we can keep growing it with our commander, it'll be a big threat on the battlefield. The next couple cards I do want to mention are from Lord of the Rings, like Arwen, Weaver of Hope. So for 1 and 2 green, it's a legendary creature, Elf Noble. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equal to Arwen's toughness. So the floor of this card is each creature we have enter the battlefield with Arwen on the battlefield are just going to get an additional 1/1 counter on it. However, the ceiling can be quite ridiculous because obviously if we do swing in with Voja, our commander, and we have about 5 elves on the battlefield, we can just put 5 1/1 counters on Arwen. Then every creature that enters the battlefield for now on, we'll get 6 1/1 counters on them. Obviously, that's a very narrow situation, but obviously, this is going to be a really good card in this deck regardless. Another Lord of the Rings card I did want to highlight is Aragorn and Arwen Wed. So I know 6 mana might seem like a lot for this, but I feel like this is going to be a very good overrun ability because it does have Vigilance, and when they enter the battlefield or attack, you put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. You also gain 1 life for each other creature you control. So in a way, this does feel like overkill, but I feel like if you're going into the 1/1 counter strategies, I feel like this will be a very good fit, especially when you swing in with your commander, put more counters on your creatures, and gain life. What's not to like? However, the more elves you do have on the battlefield, the more ridiculous Shalai and Halar will be. And I guess you could also include All Will Be One in this category with Shalai and Halar, but essentially the more counters you put on your creatures with your commander, the more ridiculous this will get. These 2 cards will act as creature removal, or in some cases, maybe most cases, act as player removal. Because the more elves you do have on the battlefield, the more you can put more 1/1 counters on each of your elves, including Voja. Then you could really apply pressure by dealing damage with Shalai and Halar, or All Will Be One. On a side note, I do also want to mention Changelings because why not have an elf and a wolf at the same time on the battlefield so that you could get the benefits of card draw and putting 1/1 counters on your creatures. So some cards I would like to quickly touch on is Realmwalker and Masked Vandal. Realmwalker is great utility because you can just look at the top card of your library at any time. Obviously you can choose a creature type if you want to cast that from the top of your library. I would choose elf as a creature type more than a wolf because obviously you're probably going to have more elves in your deck than a wolf. Regardless of that, Realmwalker will act as an elf and a wolf on the battlefield. Same will be said with Masked Vandal. It has a great ETB of exiling a target artifact or an enchantment an opponent controls, and also you do have to exile a card from your graveyard, but that's not a big downside. Aside from that, I do also want to mention another shapeshifter with Tareen Mauler. So 3 mana for a 2/2 isn't the greatest, but whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on this. And in most cases, because you're playing against 3 other players, this is just going to get huge really fast fast, especially when your commander is swinging. Plus, you can get some card draw out of this because it's a wolf and also an elf. I did also want to bring up Mirror Entity. I feel like this is going to be a great fit in the deck, no question about it, because obviously we're putting a lot of 1/1 counters on all our creatures. So even if we pay 1 or even 0 mana into that activated ability, most likely all our creatures on the battlefield are going to have counters on them, and then when we do swing in with our commander, we could draw cards and put 1/1 counters based off of all creatures we do have on the battlefield. The same thing can be said for Maskwood Nexus. This is going to be a slam dunk in the deck because creatures you control are every creature type. Plus, with that activated ability, we can make a 2/2 blue shapeshifter creature token with Changeling, which will then act obviously as a wolf and an elf on the battlefield. But I do like to go into examples. Say for example, we do have Maskwood Nexus on the battlefield and we have 10 total creatures including our commander out on the battlefield, and we do swing in with Voja. We could then put 10 1/1 counters on all creatures we control that are swinging in and draw 10 cards. This is going to be absolutely insane. Obviously, this is a very specific scenario, so hopefully you kind of get the point. But if that doesn't win you the game, I do have another strategy that you can take advantage of with your commander with that attack trigger. Because we are in the color red, we could take advantage of extra combat spells like Relentless Assault, Savage Beating, and Last Night together. Savage Beating is extra deadly, potentially giving our creatures double strike or getting an extra combat. Obviously we can entwine it to get both, but regardless, great spell. Obviously I like Last Night Together. It was one of my favorite cards of the year last year, and I feel like this is a perfect fit in our deck because of course we want to swing it with our commander. We could give it Indestructible, Vigilance, and Haste, and additionally there will be an extra combat spell. We could put 2 1/1 counters on it, so there's a lot going on in this card. I absolutely love it. What a great extra combat spell. Additionally, we are in Boros color, so we could take advantage of Waves of Aggression and Response and Resurgence. I do like Waves of Aggression because it does have that retrace ability. We could just discard a land so that we could just pay that additional cost to recast this so that we could get an extra combat. Plus, I do like the versatility of Response and Resurgence because it acts as removal as long as the creature's attacking or blocking. We could just deal 5 damage to it. Obviously, we could get an extra combat with that Resurgence side, but again, the versatility is great here. And the last extra combat card I do want to mention is a key battle squad. So the main reason why I want to point this out is because we can get extra combats based off of if we do have modified creatures. Based off the number of elves we do have on the battlefield, we can make sure all our creatures are modified so that we can get that extra combat with Voja. So again, I do feel like extra combats are going to be very viable in this deck. I feel like this is definitely the way to go because obviously the more creatures we do have on the battlefield that are elves or wolves, the more we could take advantage of our commander's ability. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this deck tech video on Voja, Jaws of the Conclave. Again, I feel like this is going to be a very powerful commander. There's 2 things that you do want to have in a commander. One is card draw and the other is a win con in the command zone. However, I do feel like you do need a little bit of setup with having elves on the battlefield, but I feel like if anything else, you could just have Voja on the battlefield and it'll draw you 1 card per combat. Obviously, the more wolves you do have on the battlefield, the better this effect will get. But let me know down below in the comments, what do you think of Voja, Jaw of the Conclave? I feel like, again, this is a very powerful commander. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.